My name is Emma Carter, and one phone call changed everything I thought I knew about my family. Early one Sunday morning, my sister Rachel called me in a calm voice and said, "Dad passed away last night." The strange part was that my father was sitting right across from me at the kitchen table, eating breakfast and joking about stealing the last piece of bacon from my plate. Without saying a word, I placed the call on speaker. Rachel didn't sound heartbroken. Instead, she immediately began talking about Dad's house, his savings, and how everything now belonged to her and her husband, Kyle. She even made it clear that I wasn't getting a single dollar. In the background, Kyle laughed and said, "She's finally out of the picture." Dad quietly set down his coffee mug and listened to every word. Neither of them realized the man they believed was dead was hearing the entire conversation. Months earlier, Dad had injured his wrist after falling from a ladder while fixing the roof. Since I was working as a travel nurse in another state, Rachel offered to take care of him. She convinced him to sign a limited power of attorney so Kyle could help with paying bills during his recovery. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then my phone calls started going unanswered. Rachel always claimed Dad was asleep or too tired to talk. I mailed him a replacement phone after she said his old one had stopped working, but it mysteriously disappeared. A second phone vanished as well. When I visited for Christmas, Dad looked weaker than ever. He admitted he hadn't seen his own bank statements in months because Kyle handled all the finances. The moment I suggested reviewing everything together, Kyle became defensive and accused me of creating family problems. A few months later, an old friend who worked at a nursing home called me with surprising news. She said an elderly man kept asking every employee if they knew how to contact his daughter, Emma. That man was my father. I drove there immediately and discovered he had been placed in the facility without ever telling me. Even worse, Dad believed I had abandoned him because Rachel and Kyle had convinced him I didn't want to see him. At the same time, they were telling me that Dad didn't want visitors. The nursing home confirmed that Dad was mentally competent and had no medical condition requiring permanent care. The next morning, we met with an elder law attorney and visited Dad's bank. The records revealed that nearly $190,000 had been transferred from his accounts. Money had been used to pay for Kyle's business expenses, luxury purchases, and part of a vacation property. The attorney also discovered forged legal documents, including a fake power of attorney and paperwork for a large loan against Dad's fully paid-off home. To strengthen the case, Dad agreed to a plan. One of his closest friends called Rachel and simply told her that Dad had unexpectedly died. No official paperwork was created, just believable news from someone she trusted. Instead of asking questions, Rachel and Kyle rushed to change the locks on Dad's house and began acting as though everything already belonged to them. 2 days later, a memorial service was held. Friends, neighbors, church members, and veterans filled the room. Kyle confidently stepped to the podium and began reading what he claimed was Dad's final will, proudly announcing that Rachel would inherit nearly everything while I had been intentionally left out. As soon as he finished, the side door slowly opened. Dad calmly walked inside wearing his favorite dark suit. The room fell completely silent. Rachel's face turned pale, and Kyle froze with the papers still in his hands. Dad approached the microphone, smiled slightly, and said, "It's difficult to inherit from someone who's still alive." Our attorney immediately presented the evidence. Bank records, forged signatures, medical reports, and financial transactions all pointed to the same scheme. Sheriff's deputies entered the hall moments later and escorted Kyle away for questioning. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Rachel admitted they had planned to return the money before anyone noticed, but it was far too late. Months later, most of Dad's savings were recovered, the fraudulent loan was canceled, and both Rachel and Kyle faced serious legal consequences. Dad moved back into his home, where he restarted my late mother's old clock that had been silent for years. Hearing it tick again made the house feel like home once more. Now, every Sunday morning, I visit him for breakfast. He still reaches across the table to steal bacon from my plate, and every time he does, we're reminded that family isn't defined by money or inheritance. The greatest victory wasn't recovering the stolen money. It was giving my father the chance to reclaim his voice before someone else wrote the ending to his story.